previous folks, every month offer two intentions. One's a missionary intention, and one is a more general intention. Does anybody know the intentions for this month? Anyone?
I think it's either trafficking or immigration, isn't it?
Trafficking.
Yeah,
so
trafficking.
It is an end to human trafficking, and the Pope even says the modern form of slavery. And so it's a call to the end of that. The second one, in case you're interested, the missionary one, is that the churches in Asia continue to bring the good news to those who need to hear it. So that one's out there too. But human trafficking is on the church's mind this month of October. And we have with us today Sister Teresa Wolf, who's a Benedictine sister from South Dakota, from the Watertown Monastery. It is
Mother of God.
Mother of God. Mother of God Monastery. And we're going to learn a little bit more about human trafficking, which, we often think is something that happens maybe in Asia or Southeast Asia, but it's something that's happening right here.
Thank you. Thank you. So by now, can you all hear me? I think I have everything turned on. You can hear me? Okay. So by now, at least most of you have heard now that human trafficking exists and that it happens to exist here also. And how many of you heard of human trafficking like in the last couple of months or so? Yeah, so at least we're getting an introduction to it. The short definition of it is it's the illegal buying and selling of human beings mainly for the purposes of commercial sexual exploitation or forced labor. It's human slavery. Now the long definition it says that trafficking is to be deceived or taken against your will, bought, sold, and enslaved in addition to sexual exploitation, sweatshops, child brides, circuses, sacrificial worship, forced begging, sale of human organs, farm labor, domestic servitude. This is a very ugly business. This presentation today will talk more about sex trafficking than other forms. And we know that sex trafficking is one of the largest and it's one of the fastest growing criminal enterprises in the world, generating $34 billion annually. Now, when I was updating my information, I had to change from $32 billion to $34 billion. So despite of what we're doing, it is growing. So it really points to the need of our becoming aware and beginning to fight this. Where does it happen? All over the world, and it happens in our country, and it happens in South Dakota. And South Dakota has special venues. It's unique. It has venues that other states do not. And to just give you a picture of that, we'll just take a look of Hidden in Plain Sight, Exposing Sex Trafficking in South Dakota. If you'd like to show that. Does it show that?
There was evil in them and the kind of things that they were capable of doing. I was scared for my life. I had no idea that I was being trafficked while I was being trafficked.
Yeah, I'll just sit here then. Yeah.
Often people in the Dakotas think that we're immune from creates the potential for problems. These young women find themselves in a very difficult position. There's no question that there's prostitution that goes on during hunting season. When you have large gatherings of men, there is going to be a market there for this sort of human trafficking.
I think that we have to go way back in history. You know, the government coming in, taking up our land. I think that is
they will go and recruit women to become part of these commercial sex trafficking rings. They'll make them all sorts of promises, and frankly, oftentimes be almost a father figure.
I was at a vulnerable point in my life, and that's one thing that these guys look for is vulnerability. They don't go after a woman that seems strong and seems like she's got everything together. I was going through a separation with the person I'd spent 10 years of my life with.
It will oftentimes start as, you know, hey, why don't we earn a little extra money by doing this one time?
You numb yourself. The drugs that they'll give you, the things they'll do for you to make you think it isn't bad. Just because a woman seems like she likes it doesn't mean that she does. She's scared. It was the shame and then the fear, and I owed him money all of a sudden. He had me in a home I couldn't afford to pay for, a car payment I couldn't pay.
So you have an 18-year-old or 17-year-old girl, she wants out. And say things like, well, look, I also know you have a 12-year-old sister. You're going to continue to do what you're doing.
Simon didn't do what he wanted me to do. He was going to hurt my children.
We've seen savage beatings. We've seen rapes. Even if initially they went willingly, if at some point they were the victim of threats, fraud, or coercion to keep them in that situation, then we have a prosecutable federal offense. Here's the challenge. The federal law enforcement in South Dakota, we don't have a lot of manpower. So what we are really dependent upon in those types of cases are faith-based organizations, domestic violence shelters, folks who are oftentimes the first responders.
It's an amazing feeling just to know that they're not going to hurt other women the way that they hurt me.
What we want the perpetrators of these crimes to know is that we're going to be behind every corner. If you're engaged in this sort of behavior in South Dakota, we're going to get you. And when we get you, we're going to put you away for a long, long time.
Okay. Can I stop that? Yes. So a bit more about who are the victims. They're United States citizens or they can be foreign nationals. We know who the victims are in South Dakota. It's hard to even face that reality. But when we heard this morning about, you know, this is the truth, This is what we have to face, and this, so we know what do we need to do. What work is ahead of us? What are the challenges? And so we know about the victims, and as we could see, they're usually from the most vulnerable strata of the community, of society. Poverty, broken homes, runaways, throwaways, misfits. They can be men, but usually men are in labor trafficking. Women and children, and mostly girls have the children. The average age for a girl is between 11 and 14. And that age is getting younger. Women and girls together account for about 75% of all trafficking victims. The FBI estimates that about 100,000 children are sold for sex in the United States. And we know why Native American women and children are so prone to this. We had a very sad explanation of that. Failing social systems, poverty, alcohol abuse, cultural degradation. Victims can also be the average ordinary teenagers and adults. Ordinary girls, high school girls, who think they found a very glamorous older boyfriend who loves them and tells them he's going to take good care of them, tells them every day how beautiful they are and that he can get them a high-paying job. Also, an impoverished workforce, men especially. An impoverished workforce that is a consequence of globalization and attendant immigration issues. Trafficking has been described as the dark underbelly of globalization. It's the end result of rapid global economic, technical, and social change which has exacerbated people's vulnerability. And that has also expanded predators' opportunities to exploit that vulnerability. Economic factors driving the expansion of trafficking include poverty itself, but also lack of employment options, which may have existed in the past. Also, increased economic disparity. Rapid and severe economic decline in some countries, especially because of war and terrorism. Economic migrations. Wealthier nations increasingly depend on migrant labor, including the United States. Last January, before the legislative session began in South Dakota, we invited Lee Schoenbeck, who's a senator, to come to the monastery to just talk a little bit with the sisters about what bills were coming up, what was he going to support, what we would like him to do, you know, kind of an education time. And he said, well, Lee is also on the advisory board of the Benedictine Multicultural Center. So I am always, you know, getting after him about immigration and immigration reform. Sadly, not much can be done on the state level. Anyhow, he said right now, South Dakota is short 10,000 entry-level laborers. And he said, and where are we going to get those? Certainly not from the other states. They have their own shortages. So if South Dakota is going to survive economically, it needs to import workers. And we know that the prohibitive immigration laws make the act of migrating illegal, difficult, and very dangerous. Desperate people looking to come to the United States for work, and they need a human smuggler, and they need a smuggler, coyote as we call them, and they sometimes unwittingly place themselves in the hands of labor traffickers. I want to give you an example of what labor trafficking in South Dakota can look like. I'll tell you the story of Jose and Carlos. Jose, a recent immigrant from Honduras and living in Houston, Texas, was desperate for a job. So when Carlos, a friendly stranger, stopped by the shelter and said there were good paying farm jobs in South Dakota, Jose jumped into the car. No questions asked. Jose worked hard for 2 weeks on a dairy in northeastern South Dakota. When he asked about his paycheck, Carlos told him that they needed to go to a nearby dairy that was owned by the same owner and finish up some work there and then collect their pay. Instead, Carlos took Jose to the truck stop, bus station, cafe by the interchange of I-29 and Highway 212 in Watertown, where they stopped for lunch. Jose excused himself to go to the restroom. When he returned, Carlos was gone. Carlos had abandoned him. You can imagine Jose's panic in a strange place, no language skills. Jose searched for Carlos all over, including the parking lot. He went every place. But needless to say, Carlos was gone for good. Jose had been abandoned, no money, no idea where he was. He knew he was in South Dakota. He had no idea how to help himself, where to go. He had no knowledge of English. Panic-stricken and helpless, he wanted to ask for help, but he couldn't ask because he didn't know enough English. So he wandered around, and then he saw Annabella, a Guatemalan immigrant who had stopped to get gas. And so he told her his sad story and asked for help. And that's where I came in, because Annabella knows me. And she knew the Benedictine Multicultural Center, and so she brought Jose to me on a Sunday afternoon. It was just by chance I had stopped in at the center to do some work, to catch up on some things. And so there was Jose, shell-shocked. He hardly knew what to say. He just knew he was in desperate straits. And so Annabella had already arranged that Jose could stay overnight in the waiting room at the bus stop. And so I gave him money for food, and the next day I bought him a bus ticket to Houston, Texas. He kept repeating, he said, I worked hard. And no me dieron nada. I worked hard and they didn't give me anything. He said, this is not right. And I said, no, it's not right at all. And I was indignant, and I thought, I'm going to get this guy, you know. But the trouble with trafficking is, you know, they hide very well. Jose had no idea what this man's name was, only Carlos. He had no idea where he was working at. He didn't know the name of the ranch. He didn't know the name of the owner. He didn't know the name of any of the other people who worked there. Of course, he had no idea about the license plate or where they were staying or anything. So there was no way that this man could be traced. Because I had thought of taking him to the police. And I thought, the police have nothing to go on. There's no way Carlos can be brought to justice. And when I did talk to a policeman at a meeting later, and he said, that's right, there was not a thing we could have done, not even a license plate, nothing. He said there was nothing anybody could have done to get any kind of justice, you know, for this person who was trafficked. So when you can tell this way, I mean, I wouldn't have known that this man was being trafficked unless I got in the middle of it. And so I know. And so sometimes we don't know when people are being trafficked because it's hidden right there. It was hidden right there in a public place. But because we didn't know, we think it's not happening. The same thing happens with sex trafficking, labor trafficking, child trafficking. Many times it's happening right in front of our noses, and we don't because we don't recognize the signs, or because we don't get involved, we don't know. What are the signs when someone is being trafficked? Some very basic signs and general signs are malnourishment. You know, the person, especially in sex trafficking or child trafficking, nervousness, signs of fatigue, bruises where the person has been beaten, depression, fearfulness. With women and girls who are trafficked, sometimes there's scarring, cigarette burns, unusual or new tattoos or branding. A common form of branding or tattooing is for a girl to have like a barcode mark on her neck or on her arm, because she now is definitely the property. She has been bought. She is the property of her trafficker or her pimp. Inappropriate and or sexualized clothing. When you see a teenage girl in the wintertime, it's 30 below, and she's wandering around a truck stop in short shorts and a very skimpy top, there is something definitely wrong. When people are in public places or hanging around, well, bars and gentlemen's clubs and those kind of places in inappropriate clothing, and they're very young, that's a very suspicious sign. Check that out and see what's going on here. Does this girl or these girls, do they hang around here frequently? Does somebody drop them off? What's going on here? For a minor, for teenage girls, for example, if there's a change in habits, a serious change, and in her personality. For example, this girl did very well at school. She was popular, she liked school, was a good student, and all at once she's skipping school. Her grades go down. She doesn't have her friends that she used to. She has new friends or no friends, and if she has new friends, they might be weird, you know. Or she has, all at once, she's very happy she has this older, glamorous boyfriend who is not a boyfriend at all, regardless of what he tells her. He's a pimp or a trafficker. And all at once, she has very expensive items, designer clothes, a new bag that cost hundreds of dollars. And you know, this girl does not come from a wealthy family that all at once she can have these kind of expensive things. A special, like a secretiveness. You know, she used to be very open with her teachers and her family, and was always there, you know, like for church night and helping with activities. And all at once, she doesn't come to CCD classes anymore. And she tells her mom and dad that she's going someplace with her friends. She doesn't go with her friends. And so there's evasiveness, and sometimes she's very fearful because she can't get out of this anymore. Because the pimp has told her, if you say anything, I will make it even worse for you. If you say anything, if there's any trouble, I can get that younger sister of yours. I can make bad things happen to your mom and dad. And so this slavery continues. In labor trafficking, as we could tell from Jose's story, the person has no control over his or her money or living space. When I asked Jose, I said, well, where did you live? What about meals? And he said he lived in a trailer with, I think, 5 or 6 other men, all Hispanic. And I said, did they get any paychecks? Did they get any money? And he said he thought so, but he wasn't sure. See, everything is vague. And I said, how did you eat? And well, money, I mean, somebody cooked and there was a meal on the table. He had the kind of a life where he was not free, to do anything. He had to work, go to this trailer house, eat what was provided, get up the next day and repeat the work. And that's what it is to be trafficked. And so they cannot or do not or are afraid to speak on their own behalf. So there's always also a language barrier there. See, he could not talk to anybody else. And fear and depression. Thinking, this is overwhelming. There's nothing I can do. What's going to happen to me? And when you think of this man, he had been in this country, I think, less than 2 months. He came from Honduras, which is very, very violent. The capital of Honduras is a murder capital of the world right now. And to think that, he had escaped that situation and had come here looking to work, to get a better life. And then he fell into this kind of a trafficking situation. And he told me that basically Carlos, the trafficker, when he stopped, he had made that pitch to all the young men there, to the men there, and there were 3 men who got in the car. But Carlos happened to stop to get gas. He was still in Houston. And the other 2 men thought there is something suspicious about this. And so they got out, and they wanted to take Jose with them also. But Jose was so desperate for this promised job that he said no, he would go because he needed a job and he would see what South Dakota was like and he would get work, So when you talk about people who are vulnerable, traffickers know how to work on that vulnerability, how to take advantage of that vulnerability. So when we think of this, now, and we know the reality, and we think, okay, what can we do to stop human trafficking? And this can seem overwhelming. I mean, this is a huge criminal enterprise worldwide. And what can a few of us in South Dakota do, with an international crime ring like this? We are working in the face of enormous evil. You can call it a crime, a sin, evil, the work of the devil. It's all correct. It's a horrendous thing that's happening, victimizing millions of people. And I think the first thing, we might say, this is discouraging. We could say, there's nothing really I can do. Nothing a handful of us can do. But remember that no evil can overcome the grace of God. God is always stronger and can overcome any kind of evil. And I learned that a long time ago when I was working on a reservation in Arizona. And it was people would become terrified, and they would talk to me about people who had put, a medicine man or somebody who had put an evil spell on them. So it was like they were possessed by the devil. And they had found signs, and they would say, what can I do? Now bad things will happen to me. And I'd always say, God is stronger than the devil. Always. No matter how frightened you are, no matter what signs they put around you or whatever, with the help of God, you can overcome this. And we can too. We can too. We need to remember that our faith is strong to overcome the devil, to overcome this terrible evil. And God will help us also. It will not be an easy job or short, but we can do it. And so when we talk about stopping human trafficking, we really think of three aspects of this. First of all is to prevent the sale of people. What can we do to stop the sale of people? Secondly, protect the victims, because what happens usually, a girl or a woman is arrested for for prostitution and put in jail. These people these are victims. These people need to be protected. They need to help for rehabilitation, to make their way in the world again. The people who need to be prosecuted are the traffickers and the Johns, or the buyers. These are the people who need to be arrested and imprisoned and fined and stopped. One of the most important things that we overlook is to begin by praying. Come, Holy Spirit, help us in this terrible evil that is powerful. This morning, one of the sisters, I don't remember which one of you stopped by my table and you said, well, I can't do much to help you, but I can pray. And I said, that's good, sister. That's the most important. Let's begin by praying. And then we'll know what else we can do. The Spirit will lead us. What else can we do? What needs to be done? And on the table, I have prayer resources. I think there's like 3 prayers in English, and I think 1 prayer in Spanish. And pray. Pray with Scripture. Pray with those prayer resources. That's a good beginning. And some of you have said, like you picked up 1 or 2, and I said, if you have a prayer group, pick up 20 copies if you want to. And then you say, well, I really don't want to take all your resources. This is an important ministry of the monastery. And when I came, I asked Jennifer, who's our communications director, I said, I want at least 100 copies of everything we have. And I said, and if I give them all out, that's fine. I said, you can make more next week. And so, and in addition to that, the monastery applied for and received a grant from Catholic Health Initiatives based in Denver, Colorado. We received the grant. It's for Watertown Initiative to Prevent Sex Trafficking. And so this is a community coalition now that we're involving all the police department, the sheriff's department, social services, the school district, to prevent, what can we do together to prevent sex trafficking in our area? And so from that foundation, we also received money, for resources, and so we are very happy to share whatever we can with you. And so take everything you want to. Take whatever of those resources that are back there. I'll be very happy if you take them. And so pray. Okay, then the next thing we want to do is to inform ourselves, like you're doing today. Okay, it's a huge issue. It affects us in South Dakota. This is why. This is what to do. This is what I know now. Then the next step is to inform others, the people in your community, your publics, your audiences. Whether you work in a school, in an office, your church group, your social groups, your working groups, schools, social service groups. And one of those very good resource that I would like to recommend for young people, for those of you who work with young people, think middle school and high school, is, and I have the DVD on back there, it's Chosen Youth Sex Trafficking Prevention Kit. And the DVD basically is talking about a high school girl and a 13-year-old girl who got into who were trafficked, and they escaped. And so it's young people talking to young people to some extent. Because sometimes, you know, we seem helplessly old to young people, you know, and they say, you know, oh, Mom, you know that doesn't happen here. You know, you worry too much, you know, or the teachers are always over concerned. But when they hear and when they see how this happened to young people like themselves, then it does hit home. And so this guide has like a DVD and then it also has a CD with resources, so that if a teacher or a youth group director wants to use this, you know, there's like discussion questions and introduction series for the teacher, and then there's discussion questions for parents, for students. So it's very helpful. And this just gives you a little bit of overview of it. And it says, if you want to purchase this kit, you can purchase it. It gives you the website where you want to purchase it. And I have some copies back there. I have, I think, 3 copies for sale. And then I have the 1 copy that I downloaded that you can look at. And if you want to take a quick look at the DVD, you can take some, you can kind of look at that for a little summary also. One of the things that I showed some of you was this, we note hunters, pheasant hunters. There's sometimes they come. I'm not trying to say that every pheasant hunter who comes is into trafficking. Just like not everybody who goes to Sturgis, is looking for trouble. However, in Watertown, we provided these cards. We printed these cards, and it says, "Attention hunters, know the signs of a potential sex trafficked victim." So here are the signs, and then on the back, a number to call, the national hotline. And we gave these cards, we gave a pack of these cards to every business in Watertown that sold guns and ammunition and hunting licenses and hunting gear. And so when they rang up their sale, they would just put one of these in their package, in their parcel. And I had Jenna return to check the other day, about how this was going. And she said in some of the places, the cards were all gone already. Because most of the people, most of the owners said they were very happy to do this. Because it was just an education tool. Nobody was saying to every hunter, now you look like a sex trafficker, or like you're looking to buy, There was, there's no threatening or no accusations. It was just saying, if you think there's some sex trafficking going on, here are the signs. If you want to do anything about it, please call this number. And so, like, nobody has to become threatening or intervene or get into trouble, But it is something positive that can be done. I forgot to say that and I have some of these cards back there. This is one of the cards that's available to be printed from this chosen sex trafficking kit. And this is a card especially like for teenagers, for girls. And it says, take action if you or your friend may be involved in a threatening relationship. And then it says back here, what are the signs? Like if you have a new boyfriend and he gets jealous easily, exhibits violence, is significantly older than you or your friend. Listen, a 13-year-old girl with a 24-year-old boyfriend, there is something seriously wrong. Seriously wrong. And then different signs in teenage language, so that they can become informed, because many times it's peers, it's people's friends or former friends who see the first signs that there's something wrong going on. And again, I have a pack of cards back there. Take as many as you wish. If you want to use these like for your youth group or CCD class or religion education class, whatever, I'd be very happy if you take whatever you wish. If you suspect a trafficking situation, call the National Trafficking Hotline. And that's listed in all the materials that I have back there and all the handouts. And never intervene directly or try to save a victim. You know why, probably. Because many times the victims do not realize that they are victims. They think this is their boyfriend who's helping them and they're doing a favor for their boyfriend. Also sad to say, some of these people, some of these victims, to force them to do these things or to help them survive even, they're given drugs or alcohol and they become addicted. And that makes it doubly hard for them. And also because they already have been threatened, if you say or do anything, bad things are going to happen to your family. So they never want to say anything. And so they will not come with you willingly. Also, a pimp, a trafficker, will not part with his person willingly, with his victim. When you sell drugs, you sell it, that's one sale and that's it. When you sell a woman or a child, you can sell that person over and over and over again. A trafficker can easily make $90,000 a year on just one person. And so he is not going to let that person go willingly. And then sometimes there can be repercussions on you, your family, or your place of business. When I was in Ohio, and I was working with immigrants, and another sister who told me later, that she was a Hispanic sister, so of course she was bilingual, and she was visiting migrant camps, basically for pastoral work, and 3 women ran up to her one day and said, "Take us away, help us escape." They were victims of sex trafficking. She did. She put them in her car and got out of there, and they told her they had a safe place to go. They told her where to take them, and she did. Of course, those traffickers, they wanted to know what happened to the women, and the people in camp told them. They said, "Sister so-and-so took them away." They threatened her religious community, and the diocese, because she worked for the diocese. The diocese fired her. They didn't fire her in so many words. They said, "Sister, please leave, because you're putting the diocese in danger." And all she did, was just try to help. She did rescue somebody. She might have saved their lives. But see, the repercussions can be very, very serious. Now, she did not work in that diocese anymore. When I knew her, she was in another diocese working with me. And that was just what happens. I mean, that can happen when you try to rescue somebody. So that's why the importance, if you see something, say something. Call the police, like in Watertown, we know. Call the police, call 911, or call this number. They are prepared to help the victim and what to do with a trafficker. See? So I think sometimes, because we want to help, and we're used to helping, and we want to get somebody out of that situation as soon as possible, that, when I first heard this, I thought, I just want to take that girl and run with her. But that will hurt her, and it will hurt you. See? So that's the importance. Observe. Get the information that you can. Call the police or call this hotline number. And then things will get done. They will get to you. You can give them information. They will know what to do. And don't give up your efforts to stop trafficking. At the beginning, it'll seem, well, we do this, we have meetings, and we do this, and nothing ever happens. We're not moving forward. It needs time to organize, to know what to do and how to do it, and with whom can you work, and what's effective. So keep on going, and you will be saving lives. Make no mistake. You will be saving lives. And I promise to help you however I can. To close, I want to share an anecdote, a little story about my presentation on sex trafficking to Region 4 of the Council of Catholic Women in Minnesota. And it was late, we were putting our things away, I was putting my things away, and a teenage girl with tears in her eyes, she came up to me and she hugged me. And she said, "Thank you for telling us these things." And I, with tears in my eyes, said, "We need to protect you. And I promise I will do everything I can to keep you safe. And this is a promise I make to you. I will do everything I can to help you so that you can also make that promise to the children and to all the vulnerable people in the Rapid City Diocese. We promise we will do everything we can to keep you safe." Thank you. Yes.
Has there been any indication in South Dakota that there are body parts being trafficking for body parts?
I don't know, but that doesn't mean anything. It could happen or not happen. You know, we don't know everything that's going on. You know. Yes.
At the beginning of your presentation, you gave a broad definition of the categories.
Yes.
Can you repeat those?
Yes. Okay. Trafficking is to be deceived or taken against your will, bought, sold, and enslaved for sexual exploitation, sweatshops, child brides, circuses, sacrificial worship, forced begging, sale of human organs, farm labor, domestic servitude. Okay.
I also just want to remind everyone we're videoing these sessions, so you could